Vic, why aren't you wearing your hat?
Sorry, Mr. Mason. I was in a hurry.
I don't want to hear your excuses. You work in the kitchen, you wear the hat, and that goes for the rest of you. I hope I made myself clear.
Yes, Mr. Mason.
Why don't you just get back to your paperwork and let me get back to my job?
I know what my job is. It's to make sure that people who work under me don't treat guests the way you just did.
What?
That's right. And you're suspended for the rest of the shift. Either you improve your attitude, or the next time you're fired. I can explain.
The rules about lateness are very clear, and they're right in your employee's manual. Now, you were late 2 weeks ago and once this week. If you're late any more this month, I'm going to have to suspend you for 2 days. And after that, if you're late twice more within a 30-day period, your employment will be terminated.
But I can explain.
I'm sorry, but those are the rules. Hi, Chris. Where to?
Human resources.
You look pretty upset. What happened?
I'm close to firing somebody. That's what happened. Why does everything have to be an argument?
Just a few simple rules, but give them an inch.
Hello, ladies.
Hi, George. Where are you headed?
Where else? Human resources.
What's new? I just had to suspend someone.
Sounds serious. I'm just putting someone on notice. How about you?
Yeah, same old story. You try to be nice to somebody, they take advantage of you.
I don't think there's anything I hate more about being a supervisor than discipline. I just wish there was something, yeah, like a rule book that would tell you how to handle every discipline situation. You know, being rude to a guest is worth 4 demerits.
Yeah.
This elevator is slow.
It is. What's going on? What button did you push?
Welcome. I've been expecting you.
This isn't human resources.
Very perceptive, George. And while it may not be human resources, I do hope that I'll be able to help you solve your discipline problems. That is what you all wished for, isn't it?
Look, it's been real nice meeting you, but I've got a banquet at 200 coming in at... Hey, my watch stopped. What is going on here? How do you know my name?
I have knowledge of all things that go on at this hotel. It's also clearly spelled out on your name tag. Now, why don't you all come over here? We have a lot to cover.
Cover?
Yes. You did ask for some help in changing the behavior of your employees, didn't you?
Well, I guess so. Does that mean you're going to show us how?
Not exactly, Chris. We can't simply alter a person's behavior.
Then why are we here?
I'm getting to that. Earlier today, all of you had a confrontation with a subordinate. You were all on your way to the Human Resources Department, hoping to unload your problem. That's when you wished for a change.
That's right. A way to change our employees' behavior. Can you do that?
No. But I can show you how to change your behavior.
My behavior? I'm not the one who...
Yes, their attitude.
Just a moment, please. Thank you. Only your employees change their own behavior. Granted, brute force can sometimes achieve a short-term change in behavior. But for long-term results, you have to work towards changing the way you administer discipline.
I'm not sure I understand.
Well, when you change the way you interact with your employees, you can help them change themselves. But first, you must rid yourselves of some myths about discipline.
Myths? What myths are you talking about?
Why, the 4 myths of discipline. First, that discipline is a form of punishment. Second, that if you're nice to your employees, you won't need to discipline. Third, that being the boss means that people have to listen to you. And fourth, that every discipline situation must be handled in exactly the same way.
What makes you think we believe in these myths? I learned some basic rules about discipline years ago, and I've stuck by them. As for myths, well...
I can understand your skepticism, Terry, but why don't we look at the myths one at a time to find out? I'm quite sure that all of you believe in the first myth. Discipline is a form of punishment.
You mean it's not?
No. Most managers make the mistake of equating discipline with punishment. But it's really a way to give people the opportunity to change themselves. George, you expect your people to wear their hats in the kitchen, right?
Of course.
And Chris, you expect your employees to treat guests at the front desk properly. Terry, you expect your housekeepers to show up for work on time, right?
That's right.
So what we're really talking about is changing their behavior to meet your expectations.
My expectations? Those are the hotel's rules, not mine. I just enforce the laws. I don't make them.
Oh, I understand your point of view. But the only real way that the expectations of the property are expressed and enforced is through the management team. Now, the best way to overcome this myth is to examine your own attitude toward discipline. How do you see your role? As judge, jury, and executioner? Or as a coach, getting your people to perform at their peak?
That's easy to talk about. You're not 4 people short in the kitchen. You see, if I try to discipline someone, I run the risk of losing them, and I can't afford to do that.
Or you're so busy you don't have time to deal with every little infraction that comes up. You handle the big ones the best you can and keep moving.
I agree with you. The hospitality world is a challenging place. But did you ever think that you might actually be able to reduce turnover by using discipline properly? Or that maybe you could prevent some of the more serious discipline situations by addressing problem behavior early on?
That's all well and good, but if I can't punish them, what can I do?
Let me show you. George, let's go back to the kitchen to see how you handled that little episode with Vic.
Back to the kitchen? What do you mean?
Please, concentrate.
Vic, why aren't you wearing your hat?
I'm sorry, Mr. Mason. I was in a hurry. I
don't
forgot.
want your excuses. You work in the kitchen, you wear the hat, and that goes for the rest of you. I hope I made myself clear.
Yes, Mr. Mason.
Was that the way it happened, George?
Well, yes, but I didn't actually punish him. I just pointed out what was wrong.
Loud enough for everyone to hear. George, is this the first time that one of your employees has worked without a hat?
Well, no. I mean, of course, it's happened before, once or twice.
And you always reacted the same?
Well, no. Sometimes I just made a joke about it, or sometimes I...
You really didn't say anything at all. You were trying to be a nice guy and let it slide.
No, it's not the way you make it sound.
It's all right, George. We all have our myths. I believe yours is, if you're nice to your employees, you won't need to discipline.
Well, I certainly don't believe that. You've got to let your people know when they've done something wrong.
Terry's right. But fear of disciplining can motivate managers to be overly permissive.
But what's there to be afraid of?
Well, managers are less likely to act if they view discipline negatively, as a form of punishment. Or they may simply be afraid of confrontations. Some managers don't know how to discipline, so they apply it the only way they know how.
As punishment?
Yes. And that can lead to results that are the opposite of what the manager wanted.
Which makes them even more afraid to discipline.
Unfortunately, yes.
Well, I like to think of it as a way to keep my employees productive and happy. I prefer not to pick on them for every little thing they do.
But in reality, your employees often accept these favors without developing any respect for you. Isn't that right, George?
Sometimes. But when I did say something to Vic, he listened. I really put the fear of God into him, didn't I?
How can you be so sure, George? Would you like to see what happened after you left?
Sure. Sure I would.
Watch closely then.
Well, George really let you have it.
Yeah. The one time I forget to wear my hat and he has to blow his stack. How come he let you off so easy last week?
I don't think it had anything to do with you. George got the 3rd degree from the GM earlier about sanitation. You just happened to be at the right place at the wrong time.
Well, I don't care what set him off. He didn't even care that I came in early to help with the banquet. You know, that's the last time I'll ever do him a favor.
Well, that is not what I meant to happen at all.
But that's how your message was received. By the way, is it true what Paul said about the general manager?
Well, yes, the GM chewed me out, and I guess I took it out on Vic. But he was violating a rule, and he deserved to be...
Punished, George? That's the dilemma you run into when you think of discipline as a form of punishment. You spend all your time waiting for people to do something wrong. Granted, Vic's behavior was short of the hotel's expectations, but what expectations had you expressed by trying to be nice?
None, I guess.
And when you did finally make a stand, it was like an explosion, wasn't it? You lost a lot of credibility out there today.
So what can I do to change this myth?
You can begin by seeing discipline as a way to help employees modify their own behavior. Then you'll feel more at ease talking to them about the gap.
The gap?
Yes, the gap that exists between their behavior and your expectations. The goal of any discipline situation is to close that gap. I'll show you what I mean. First, you take Vic aside.
Hey, Vic, can I talk to you for a second?
Sure, Mr. Mason.
Then remind him of your expectations.
Why aren't you wearing your hat?
Well, you see, I was in a hurry and I forgot to put it on.
Explain the reason for the rule and clarify the gap.
Well, Vic, you know, we expect everyone who prepares food in the kitchen area to wear a hat. See, it's for sanitary purposes. And, you know, how do you think one of our guests would feel if they found a hair in their soup?
Let Vic respond.
And I am sorry, Mr. Mason. I realized that we had a large banquet group coming in this evening, and I just came in and jumped right into my work without thinking.
Then reaffirm Vic's importance to the property and your confidence in him.
Well, I appreciate your eagerness. You've done a great job for us so far, and we really need you as part of the team. But remember, this is part of the uniform, okay?
Okay, Mr. Mason.
All right.
That wasn't difficult.
With many employees, that's all it takes. But don't forget to follow up.
Follow up. What do you mean?
First, you need to make a note about the situation to the employee's file. Then follow up with the employee later to show you've recognized the change in behavior.
You mean positive reinforcement. Then the note becomes a reminder that the employee was given the opportunity to correct their behavior.
Yeah, and you'll need that note if you're ever dragged into court.
Good point. Documentation for legal purposes is important. As a manager, you're responsible for compiling this information. Without it, you'll have a difficult time proving that you did attempt to correct the situation. But I also want you to see this as a tool you can use to help employees change their behavior.
How's that?
Well, with good documentation, you can recall important dates, facts, and patterns of behavior. Is it more significant that Vic is without his hat today for the first time, or that this is the third time in the past month that this has happened?
But I don't have time to write up a long report for every little incident.
Just a brief note will suffice. List the date, the time, the nature of the infraction, and any action that was agreed upon.
Okay, but suppose you do document every detail. Your people can still act like...
Like Kyle?
Yes, I've talked to him before about his attitude.
A bad attitude, huh? Perhaps we should look at what happened.
Hi. I have a reservation under Welling.
How do you spell that?
W-E-L-L-I-N-G.
Willing. Edward?
Yes.
Yeah, here you are. I just need you to fill this out. Sign at the bottom, please. Okay. Here's your credit card back and your room key. It's room 201, just down the hall.
Can you tell me how late the restaurant is open?
What?
How late is your restaurant open? I haven't eaten yet.
9.
What?
The restaurant is open till 9, I think.
Could I get a bellman?
Yeah, I'll see if I can find somebody.
Oh, don't bother.
What do you think you're doing?
What are you talking
The
about?
way you handled that last guest.
What about it?
We've talked about your attitude problem before, Kyle. I can't let you go on treating guests like that.
Like what? He got his room, didn't he?
That's not the point.
You're sure taking this new supervisor's job pretty seriously, aren't you? Why don't you just get back to your paperwork and let me get back to my job?
I know what my job is. It's to make sure that people who work under me don't treat guests the way you just did.
What?
That's right. And you're suspended for the rest of the shift. Either you improve your attitude, or the next time you're fired.
That wasn't very pretty, Chris.
But I warned him about his attitude. It's in his file. How many different ways do I have to tell him?
You're correct. There are notes in his file, but they focused on attitudes. You never really discussed how his behavior fell short of the guest's expectations. Attacking an employee's personality rarely yields any positive results. Chris, you can't rely on myth number 3. Being the boss means people have to listen to you.
Nobody really believes that, do they?
Well, many managers feel that their position gives them power over subordinates, that they will simply do as they're told. These managers often threaten and intimidate to motivate employees. Isn't that right, Chris?
Now, wait a minute. Kyle's just jealous because I got that promotion. He doesn't respect my authority and he doesn't listen to me. He's
Developed a bad attitude? And as the supervisor, you responded with threats. The result was a power struggle in which neither of you could win. Why don't you see for yourself?
Hi, Kyle.
Hi, Lori.
Leaving a little early.
Yeah, Chris suspended me.
For what?
A bad attitude. It's the same old story. I was just doing my job, and she bawls me out for having a bad attitude.
Sounds like she's got the problem. Some people just love that power trip.
Yeah, well, she can have it. I've got an appointment at the Marshall Inn tomorrow. They've got an opening at their front desk. I'm just the guy they need.
Well, good luck.
Thanks.
I guess I made a mistake. I still can't believe Kyle would do that. I've got to get back.
You have plenty of time to change these events, Chris. But first, you have to change your behavior.
We used to get along so well.
Well, it is difficult when you're promoted to management after developing a relationship as a peer. You've got to remember the coaching part of discipline.
So what are you suggesting we do? Ignore attitude problems?
The answer is to see it not as an attitude, but as a behavior. Behavior that the employee can change with the proper direction from you. But first, you need to establish that there is a gap.
But I thought that's what I'd been doing.
Well, for many situations, such as the one George encountered, it is simply a matter of pointing out the obvious. But in other cases, it requires a more thorough examination of the behavior. And that hasn't been the case with Kyle, has it, Chris?
No, we've just had a couple of quick informal talks. It seemed like enough.
But it wasn't. Let me show you what I mean. With Kyle, you need to immediately acknowledge the infraction. That is, Kyle's behavior toward your guests. He needs to understand immediately that that kind of behavior is unacceptable. Since you've previously had this kind of discussion with Kyle, the next step is to schedule a formal meeting to talk about the cause of the behavior. This serves two purposes. It gives you the chance to prepare for it, and it lets Kyle know that it is a more serious problem. You can also use this time to investigate the infraction so you understand what exactly happened. And it gives you a chance to check the employee's file. All of this will help you focus on the undesirable behavior, not personalities.
I want us to focus today on the way you've been interacting with guests lately.
What about it?
Well, I've noticed that lately you haven't seemed very attentive. You should be greeting guests when they first approach the front desk. You should be anticipating their needs.
I do, most of the time.
That's not good enough, Kyle. Guest relations are extremely important all the time, not just when you're in a good mood. Every day should be like your first day. You've got to be up for every guest.
I try, but it's just so hard to be up like that all the time.
And then you do agree that there is some room for improvement.
Yeah, you're right. I'll work on it.
Okay, then let's take a look at some of the things we can do. Can it really work that way?
Not every discipline problem is solved easily. It takes hard work for both of you.
But it'd be worth it compared to losing Kyle to another hotel.
Exactly. Disciplining a current employee with whom you already have a relationship is always preferable to starting all over again. Right, Terry?
Me? I did all those things you suggested with Maria.
Why don't you tell us a little bit more about what happened today?
Well, it's all very simple. Maria's been a housekeeper with us for about 6 months. Her work has been very good, and her attendance has been excellent.
Until recently.
Yes. 2 weeks ago, she was almost half an hour late, twice. I gave her a quick reprimand at the time, and that seemed to take care of it. Until yesterday. And she called in sick, and I'm just sure she wasn't. And then today, well, today she was late again. Now, I didn't reprimand her in front of anybody else.
Well, that's good.
And I did take the time to have a formal discipline session with her to establish the gap, as you call it, between her behavior and the hotel's expectations.
So far, you seem to be doing just fine. Why don't we see what actually transpired today?
Hi, Maria.
Am I too early?
No, no. Come on in. Close the door. Have a seat.
Thanks.
Maria, you know why you're here, don't you?
Because I was late today?
Yes.
I can explain.
The rules about lateness are very clear, and they're right in your employee's manual. Now, you were late 2 weeks ago and once this week. If you're late any more this month, I'm going to have to suspend you for 2 days. And after that, if you're late twice more within a 30-day period, your employment will be terminated.
But I can explain.
I'm sorry, but those are the rules.
That was very efficient of you, Terry.
Well, I suppose I could have been a little more tactful, but the point is, she understands the rules. We covered them the last time I talked to her. I just wanted to make it clear that if she breaks them again, she'll know what to expect.
Again, you followed the rules very well. But you have fallen prey to myth number 4. Every discipline situation must be handled in exactly the same way.
What's wrong with being fair?
There's nothing wrong with fairness. But following rules so rigidly that there's no room for flexibility, well, why don't I show you the result of your discussion today with Maria?
May I please speak to Dan Baker? Thank you. Hi, honey, it's me. Sorry to bother you at work. No, Joey's okay. I just wanted to let you know that I don't think your new work schedule is going to work out. Because I was late again today. Mrs. Billings really came down hard on me. Next time I get suspended. I don't know what we're going to do. Well, we can talk about it when you get home. Bye.
Well, I don't understand.
Of course not. You treated Maria's tardiness just like everyone else's, by the rules.
That gives you an easy excuse for not correcting behavior.
Do you expect me to listen to every sob story that comes my way? Believe me, I've heard them all. My alarm didn't go off, the bus was late, my car broke down. I can't solve the world's problems, you know.
And nobody's asking you to. It's true, you must have good reasons for handling similar situations differently. But while a problem behavior might be similar, perhaps the cause is different. And that means your solution may differ as well.
You mean my choice of a disciplinary approach depends on the factors that make up a situation?
Yes. For instance, it would be unfair to use the same disciplinary procedures for an employee who has 20 years of perfect service and comes in late twice because of a serious illness of a spouse, and a second person, still in an initial review period, who comes in late twice because an alarm didn't go off.
I understand. Enforce the spirit rather than the letter of the law.
Exactly. You've got to keep the overall purpose in mind to get employees to change their behavior.
Yeah. Now, all Terry's done is make Maria more aware of the penalties for being caught.
Well, the key is to handle each situation properly and efficiently in the first place. Keep complete records and document every instance of disciplinary action.
Well, I did all that. I still don't see how I could have changed anything.
You're not going to make this easy, are you? Very well. Let's look at how today might have gone without your myth. You started off all right.
Hi, Maria.
Am I too early?
No, no. Come on in. Close the door. Have a seat.
Thanks.
Maria, you know why you're here, don't you?
Because I was late today?
Yes.
I'm really sorry about that. I won't let it happen again, I promise.
Try to uncover the cause of the behavior.
I'm glad to hear it, Maria, but I really wanted to talk to you today about why you've been having problems coming in on time. You know, I checked over your file, and up until the past few weeks, you've had a good attendance record. Is there some reason for this?
Look, Mrs. Billings, it's really nice that you want to help and all, but I can take care of my own personal problems.
Let Maria know that you really do want to help.
I'll understand if you don't want to talk about a personal matter, but if I don't know what the problem is, I can't help you.
Well, it's my husband's new job. You see, he used to work nights, so he was home during the day to take care of my son. But now that he's working days, we had to find a sitter. Well, I thought my sister could take care of him, but that only worked out for a couple of weeks.
Actively listen.
I see. Go on.
And then we found a sitter, but she was late twice.
Those were the days you were late?
Yes. And then I found this neighbor girl who seemed really nice, but she called and canceled at the last minute.
So you called in sick?
Yes. Today I took him over to my sister's. That's why I was late today. My sister's not really happy with this arrangement, though, and I've only got a couple of days to find somebody else. I know it's not your problem.
It is when it affects the people who work for me.
Try to find a solution that's agreeable to both parties.
Have you ever thought about working another shift?
Really? You'd let me do that?
I think it's possible we could work something out. Right now, all I can do is promise to try. You might also check with Human Resources. I believe they keep a list of local daycare centers. Might be worth a look.
All right, I'll look into that.
And finally, make it clear that it's up to the employee to ultimately correct the behavior, regardless of what you do.
Good. Then we'll see what we can do. In the meantime, though, I really do need you here every day, Maria, on time. If you can't make it on time for whatever reason, give me a call, okay?
Okay. You won't have to remind me again.
All right, you win this one. But not every employee is going to change. Then what?
I understand your concern. By the time you've completed a formal warning like this, most employees will respond to your guidance. In fact, most people will respond to a simple warning, such as the one George should have given to Vic. But there will be those times, unfortunately, when you have no alternative but to suspend or terminate an employee.
Just the thought of firing someone bothers me.
It is, unfortunately, part of the territory. But hopefully, by the time you need to take that kind of action, Chris, you'll feel confident that you've done everything you can to help the employee correct the undesirable behavior. So, in essence, they'll be firing themselves because they'll have understood the expectations placed on them and where they've fallen short.
Now, how does a suspension or termination session differ from what Terry did?
There are similarities between the kind of session Terry had with Maria and a more serious discussion.
Well, sure, you would still need to do a thorough investigation and review the documentation, plus discuss the gap.
But now's the time to call in reinforcements.
You mean someone from Human Resources, or my boss?
Right. Either can be used as a third-party witness. Their presence also helps to convey the seriousness of the discussion.
Wouldn't it help to hold this kind of discipline session at a location outside your own department?
Yes, it would. Now you're getting the idea.
Now, wouldn't you want to discuss your expectations and the employee's behavior?
Very good. Once you've done all that, you need to clearly explain the suspension or termination process. What you say should depend on the seriousness of the infraction and any written guidelines the hotel has.
You make it all sound so simple.
It can be, Chris, if you can change the way you look at discipline. Just try to keep in mind the 4 myths of discipline we've spoken of. First, that discipline is a form of punishment. Second, that if you're nice to your employees, you won't need to discipline. Third, that being the boss means that people have to listen to you. And fourth, that every discipline situation must be handled in exactly the same way. I realize that it may have been a little painful to have me point these myths out to you, but I think you'll agree that it's easier to change your approach to discipline than to change employees. You all have enough challenges in your jobs as it is.
But there are so many situations, so many employees.
And that is where the challenge lies. I can't tell you how to handle every situation. No one can. But if you can manage to shed these myths, I think you'll do much better. Your elevator is here.
I just hope that it's not too late to turn things around.
The choice is up to you.
The name tag is part of the uniform. It's supposed to be worn all the time. The next time I see you without it, you'll be suspended.
Hey, Ron, how's it going?
Not very good right now, George. I got to get to Human Resources.